My name is Sam. I'm non-binary and trans, and I'm here to tell you a little something about names and dysphoria and belonging in different places. Let's start off with dysphoria. My dysphoria has only gotten worse for me in the years since I've come out. And the worst part is I can't really explain that to most people outside of the trans community. If I say, oh, my dysphoria is really bad today, to a trans person, they'll nod and say, yeah, I get that. Whereas if I say the same thing to a cisgender person or somebody who identifies with their birth gender, they'll look at me, maybe kind of funny, and say, dysphoria? What's that? And if they're really cruel or ignorant, they'll say, oh, that sounds made up. Why don't you just, dunno, buck up and get over it? Dysphoria is really nebulous, and it's really hard to put into words, and even harder to understand, even for myself. Like, it took me a good long while of thinking to put this into words. And really, I can only ever explain the 1,001 ways it exists in my life, and only my life. And that's one of the hardest aspects of being trans. Yes, non-binary is included under the trans banner. I really have to remind myself of that on the bad days. Another trans person experiences their dysphoria in similar or different ways depending on where they align in terms of gender and how their body disagrees with their own brain, if at all. Social dysphoria, though, that's a really different many-eyed beast that has me shaking every time somebody messes up my pronouns, they, them, theirs, or even worse, when I hear the sinister hiss of someone saying my dead name. My name, the one that I go by and want to be called, Sam, it's not my legal name. So my dead name appears in all official capacities, like my ID card, both my student ID and my driver's license, my student email, bills, banking information, rosters for classes, medical records, work where it's not safe for me to be out, only work at home though, and any accounts online for apps that I made prior to coming out, to name a few examples. And my dead name and the name that I want to be going by, it's not just like a name and nickname situation, it's a lot more than that. Anxiety always prickles through the bottom 5 or 6 vertebrae of my spine every time I have to confront my dead name. Every time I need to pay my credit card bill, I have to log on to an account that has my legal dead name plastered on every page. Every time I have to sign any official documents, I have to sign my dead name in cursive. Every time I have to confront any sort of legal issues, such as signing up for housing or paying my tuition, I have to give them my dead name. And every time I enter the building where I live or go to the caf, I have to pull my ID card off my lanyard face down so I don't have to see my picture or my name, and I hand it to someone, at which point, after they scan the barcode, my name will pop up on their screen and they'll look at it and they'll pin it to me, if only just for a brief moment. But the damage is done. I'm that name and assumed gender to them now thanks to my inherently feminine dead name. Sarah. Can't escape it. If I have to correct them for any sort of reason, they'll look at me strangely. Every time I order a package online and I input my address, it has to be my dead name because that's the name registered with my address. Every time I send an email through my school email, I have to hope that whoever I'm sending the email to is someone I either know or someone I hope will read my signature at the bottom. Sam Yarnell. They, them, theirs, instead of paying attention to the name that comes with the address. It's hit or miss with new people, and I hate that that's the case because apparently people just don't read signatures. Every time I start a new semester, I dread the introductions at the beginning of class. If I've had the professor before, I can hope that they already know me and my pronouns, the current ones, not the ones that I used before. And they might even break away from ticking down the roster and instead let students say their own names as well as their pronouns. I really appreciate that. Even if everyone else around me kind of gives a silly little grin at the silliness of having to give their pronouns. They often assume that those around them have the pronouns that align with the gender they look like. And being asked to share their pronouns alongside me in class helps normalize to everyone that not all pronouns are standard. However, at the same time, I have to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the professor is doing it purely for me. And had I not been there, they would simply go around and ask everyone their names and not their pronouns. Am I simply causing an inconvenience to, those around me? I'll think to myself, is it really too much trouble to be myself and stick out like a sore thumb simply because I don't fall into the typical norm? I've really grown to hate those thoughts that rattle around in my head on the first day of the semester when I'm waiting for the naming to come around to me, and then I feel my throat burn with shame and my hands shake and my fingertips grow cold as I feel the eyes of curiosity land on me after I confidently say, "I'm Sam. I go by they, them, theirs." So far, in all of my college classes, I've been the only one to go by they, them, theirs, and introduce myself as such. Explicitly, those pronouns anyway. Some people will use she and them, or he and them, but it's really just been me who's used purely they. I like the name that I've chosen. It's much better than the one I was given at birth. I'm proud of my identity. I'm okay with my pronouns. I would much rather be called they than her, but that really doesn't stop the shame of feeling different upon announcing that. But any of these brief moments of shame are much preferred compared to the professor who doesn't give me that chance in the first place. There are some professors, and they often teach the required core courses, and that's where I've most often found this problem. They'll print off the pre-generated roster from the school, the one with the full legal names. They'll stand at the front of class, in front of the computer or podium, and, pen in hand, tick down that list, looking up after each student to try and begin connecting a name to a face before looking back down again. It's in those moments that I realize I'm trapped. Students will correct the professor on a nickname they might have. Gabriella might become Gabby, Alexander becomes Alex, but those are all normal. Just simple shortenings of traditional names, nothing to comment on. The professor has heard these shortenings before. They keep ticking down, and anxiety froths more and more in my stomach. It prickles down my spine, racing faster and faster and faster with each and every name. Since the list is arranged by last name, and I have the great misfortune of having a surname that begins with Y, I'll be one of the last ticks on the list, if not the last. The sickening anticipation in my twisting stomach builds. They reach the G's and H's, and I can hear my heartbeat shaking in my fingertips. They run through the R's and S's and T's, and my mouth is either dry as paper or flooded, tasting faintly of pennies. There is no in-between. I can feel my foot chattering anxiously against the floor, hand clenched tight in a claw around my kneecap as it jostles up and down. In my head, I'm frantically thinking over and over and over, here, but I go by Sam. 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 Here, but I go by Sam, 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 Sam. These echoes of my own name are almost meant to be a reassurance for myself. But honestly, I say it over and over again so I won't forget to say it. I've had Sam as a name for a year and a half. I had Sarah as a name for 18. It takes getting used to, even still. I say it so I won't freeze when they reach me. I don't want to make things difficult, but I have to. They will see my dead name printed there. They will see it and say it out loud to the class in a voice louder than normal in order to project to every corner of the room, finding the student associated with it. I will have to correct them as soon as I can in a voice loud enough to match that. They reach my name and I say out loud in a voice that's small and reedy and high, "Here, I go by Sam," just like I practiced. Almost. I almost glare at them, daring them to challenge and question me, and then I brace myself for that look of curiosity they give me. They have never heard of the jump between my dead name and Sam as a nickname before. The professor pauses a moment too long. Then they shrug and mark down the supposed nickname. And then they tick through the last few names. My hand unclenches from my knee, and I suddenly feel weak in the elbows and shoulders, and I feel the furrow between my eyebrows release as the tension slips away for a moment. I've won this battle. Not with them. Not really. I still didn't get to say my pronouns, and I probably never will at this point. But I've won it, at least until the next class that I have to go to, when the new professor will tick through a new roster, one without nicknames and corrections, and I will have to correct them again until they make their own roster and my name is set in ink. Going home to be with family is even harder most of the time. When I'm at school, 5 hours away from my parents' house, I make my own world. I introduce myself to those around me as Sam, and they believe me. The longest anyone has ever known me here at school is 3 to 4 years. So the correction from my dead name to Sam is an easy one. With family, it's different. I came out to my parents about 4 months after I'd come out to myself, and about 2 months after I'd come out at school. I'd been planning and dreading for months how I would do it and how they would react. After all, they hadn't been all that pleased when I said I'd been dating a woman the summer before. When I came out as non-binary to them, I'd hoped, maybe foolishly, that maybe, just maybe, they'd look at me, their child, and say, "Yeah, okay, Sam, we can get used to that. Just give us some time. We'll work on it. Promise." I have never been so wrong in my hopes. They did not react positively. They didn't even react negatively, and thinking about it now, I almost wish they had. What actually happened was far worse. My parents ignored me. They continue to ignore me. They continue to use my dead name despite after I told them that it hurt when they called me that. They continue to call me she and her and their daughter. And the knot in my throat grows larger and larger with each instance. My mother even had the audacity to suggest calling me by the first 3 letters of my dead name, Sarah. A nickname I'd had since I was small. As if that were any better, it's still part of my dead name. I don't want anything to do with it. Just because she can't call me Sam. We gave you your name. Did you ever think about how it hurts us to hear you rejecting it after 18 years? How is that fair to us? You can't expect us to just jump on board with this. Why are you trying to put yourself in these boxes? I bet it was that girlfriend of yours. She's trans. I bet you picked this up from her. I don't call my parents very often anymore. In the year before coming out as non-binary, when I was dating my first girlfriend, our communication kind of fell apart. And it's really been patchy ever since. I'm working on fixing it, but not really at all. They want me to communicate with them, but how can I explain to them that I'm not their daughter, not the one they thought they once had? How can I explain to them that it physically hurts when they call me by my dead name after I've explicitly asked to be called Sam? How can I explain that I'm participating in classes and advocating on LGBTQ plus panels despite them advising but really telling me not to, as Sam? How can I explain that my friends here know me as Sam and have forgotten anything else beforehand? How can I explain that my name might be different, but my pronouns might be different, but I'm still their child? Since coming out to my parents, I've lost any deep connection to my family, and I've also lost most of the support network I had when I first came out as non-binary. The friends I had counted on from high school have drifted away into their own lives. Most of the friends I made during college have either graduated and gone to different corners of the country or aren't as connected to me for me to trust them with these feelings. It's getting better, but I could still work on that. These feelings, they're heavy, they're too heavy just to share with anyone, and I can't just give them to the people I trust out of the blue. There have to be preparations, a lead-in of sorts. I don't want to spring that on them. I feel like I can't even call myself a part of the trans community, because there are gatekeepers who say, non-binary people don't exist, non-binary dysphoria doesn't exist. How would that even make sense? You have to pick one side or the other. Those gatekeepers are few and far between, but it really doesn't matter because I've heard their words, I've heard their voices, and I'm wary of everyone as a result for fear that they might be against me. I still do wonder about belonging in the trans community and causing trouble. I wouldn't mind dipping my toes in, if only to find more people like me. But a more than fair amount of trans people identify on either one side or the binary of the gender binary of the other. I fall somewhere in the middle, meaning it's not just an easy fix to go from him to her or vice versa. People have to get used to, the thousands of year old singular they that feels weird in their mouth. It makes me feel singled out, even among trans people. I'm not a confrontational person. Far from it. I really don't like to be noticed, especially now. But my name and my pronoun request automatically pins a spotlight on me. It's an awful catch-22 that I find myself in. Those that know have to either check themselves and get used to the request, or correct previous knowledge. Those who don't either have to learn or continue to choose ignorance. Either way, I'm a walking learning curve. Most of the time, I don't feel trans enough to be even called trans. I don't take hormones, though maybe I'd like to for a little bit in the future, at least to fix the way some things are about me. Testosterone would lower my voice and redistribute some fat if I were on it long enough. There isn't a middle hormone that would make me look androgynous, only a combination cocktail that might get me close to my ideal body. I haven't had any of the surgeries, like bottom surgery, otherwise known as sex reassignment, or top surgery, where a surgeon removes the breasts. Although maybe in the future I might pursue that one. Might do wonders for my physical dysphoria. Even if I did have surgery, there really isn't one specifically designed for non-binary people. There is no in-between human body. We have to choose chest or no chest, feminine or masculine genitalia, feminine or masculine fat distribution, feminine or masculine hair growth, As a result, I really don't feel like the trans flag is for me, even though I know that the white stripe in the middle is meant for those trans people who identify outside of the gender binary. But that really doesn't stop the wriggling thoughts of maybe I'm not really trans. Maybe what I am isn't real. Maybe I'll never find a person who could love me for just being me. Maybe I really don't belong in the community. Maybe I'm just causing too much trouble by asking to be called these names and these pronouns. Maybe it would stop hurting if, and I might feel better if I just forgot about this. Some of these thoughts I know are irrational and blatantly wrong. I know that I'm capable of being loved. I know that I'm trans, I'm real, and I'd be even unhappier if I tried to go back to who I was before. There is no going back now. I've had a taste of this world, and I'm really content living in it. I can't go back to being called Sarah. I can't go back to my dead name. It's dead for a reason. I can't abandon the people and community I found here. I can't let go of the strength I've gained in being myself. I really do want to be out and proud of my identity, but that really proves to be challenging, especially when I'm advocating on behalf of community I have a tenuous connection with. I advocate, and to most people on the Regis campus who've met me, I am one of very, very few out trans people they have ever met, if any at all. It's rather disheartening to learn that after this year I might be the only out trans person left, at least the only one that I have explicitly met. It could be because I attend a Jesuit Catholic school, or it could be because of the political climate that we're living in today. People are scared. LGBTQ plus people, especially trans people, are terrified to be out for fear of bigotry and retribution. That makes the advocating really hard, because in an instant I'm reduced to the token trans person just by being out. I'm asked questions that would be better suited to a large group of trans people rather than just me. I can't answer for everyone. I can only answer for myself because I'm the only one whose experiences I know. I'm the only one whose life I've lived and will ever live. I'm not the all-knowledgeable trans person who knows every single trans issue to have ever affected the community, although I'm trying to learn. The community is just that, a community built of a multitude of people and not just me. I can't make up a community, I can only be a part of one. I barely even know my own history. I'm trying to learn what I can, but it's a lot of history to take in. I'm already a different case because I ride the midline instead of staying on either side of the binary. However, I'm asked to represent a community I feel like I barely belong to in the first place. And all of that weight makes me feel lesser. Makes me feel like the sum of my pieces instead of the whole entire me, the whole Sam they should ask for. I'm not a trans person. I'm a person who's also trans. Names and dysphoria don't define me, even if I might define parts of myself by them. But belonging is a process, and I'm getting there. It's just taking more time than I'd like, but I'm getting there. And it gives me hope. It gives me hope that I'll find people who will only ever know me as Sam, maybe as non-binary, but it's only a piece of me, the community, that is my whole.